Well, we may have improved in education, at least during the post-independence era. We're trying to improve education by enrolling a lot more of children in our communities into schools. Over the decades, it's improved a lot more. The literacy levels have had a higher percentage numbers, and so we can take solace in the fact that we're doing a lot more than we were some 50 odd years ago. But apparently, we have not been able to bridge the gap as far as we're concerned in the literacy levels, and also get the young people that we have in the bulk of the schools we have in the public sector well schooled. And so we're just getting the statistics that at least 51%, according to a report that is being published in the media, of children of school-going age can't read and write adequately the formal English language. More so, even for all the advocacy we'll be doing for tutorials to be undertaken for L1 in the local language, they can also read that as well. What does it mean? That's why we're here to share a lot more thoughts on the subject. We have a former Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Michael Nsowa, is in the studio. Thanks for joining me, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay. And we also have the public relations boss of the Education Service, or is it the ministry?
Education
The Ghana Education Service, and the Reverend Jonathan Betty is in the studio. Somebody I also know very well as well. A very good morning to all of you. It's a privilege to have you. The last time I spoke to you was on the phone, and it's good to have you in the studio, Dr. Nsowa. Our first would have to...
No, doctor.
Mr. Michael Nsowa. So I first would have to touch base with you because when you were the Director General, we talked extensively about how the reforms that were undertaken by the Jofus Anambra Mensa Committee had also brought about a change in technical cycle education. But we would also have a reflection on what was being undertaken at the basic and preschool levels. Why have we deteriorated, or if we've not, why do we have the situation currently from at least from the early part of the millennium till now?
Okay, thank you. It looks like these reports come,
intermittently.
Intermittently. And for me, my conclusion is that we don't seem to be enforcing the policy that has been in existence for many, many, many years, since colonial times. Even before colonial times, when the missionaries arrived to introduce school education into Ghana, they tried to educate the children using their own language, and there was the confusion. We had the Dutch, the Danish, the Germans, the British, and so on and so forth. At a point, they realized that they were not getting through. So they decided to, use the vernacular, at least in the early years, so that then they can bridge to either Danish, Dutch, English, German, and so on and so forth. And even at that time, there was resistance from some educated Ghanaians who saw the vernacular as the devil's language. And that was unfortunate. And I think this trend has continued. Now, when Gogisbet, Governor Gogisbet is known to have actually laid solid foundation, and if we had followed Gogisbet, foundation, maybe we would not be where we are. Before he left Ghana, he gave us what has become known as Gogisbet's 16 principles, based on which we'll be able to put Ghana's education. And in fact, he was proud to say that, look, if we do that, in fact, at the time he said, it's called a farewell message. He said, look, we have done so much that Ghana's education can compare to any other educational system in the world. And true to it. That's why we got Kofi Annan and all those people. Now, the 12 principles of Gogisbet 16 principles say that we can, education must be based on the vernacular, while English is taught as a subject. Again, there were resistance from educated Ghanaians, those who had opportunity to continue their education in
Britain,
were against using their own local language.
And they form the educated elite.
Exactly. They were the influential people in education. I don't want to mention it. They are all chronicled. No. But you ask yourself, what were they doing to this nation? Then Gold Coast. Of course, there were others who had been trained, who have been educated, but based on the Basel tradition, were in favor of using, and that was the time that, other people who were in education, especially the colonialists, started looking at how to actually produce books in order to support this idea. And that's where we got the Ghana Dictionary, the Tree Dictionary, the Ewe Dictionary and stuff. As we speak, 1966, 1967 Kwapong report also said the same thing. For me, we are not there yet because people don't believe that we should be Ghanaian or African, but we should be Europeans or British, English.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
So, but that...
fundamentally is the history, if we want to trace
exactly.
it, as to why we are where we are.
Yes.
Currently. Okay, we'll come to the subject of why the local language, teaching the local language is critical. But for the education service, when periodically we have all these reports compiled and they are published, and the media tends to hike it the way they do, how then does it affect what the policy implementation is? Because then you're on a certain trajectory, and it's as if that you're almost retrogressing in a way.
Yeah, thank you very much, and we just want to thank our listeners also. Today is a special day, having the authority also in the house. I'm grateful to you. Ghana Education Service, I can say that for now we're trying to improve upon all that my father has just said, making sure that the policies are implemented. But what are the hinges, or what are the things that are hindering us from moving forward? As you have rightly stated, we looking forward to hear from you as media houses the efforts that we are putting into, or the measures that Ghana Education Service is putting into teaching and learning, that you also help in projecting whatever we are doing. But along the line, we realize that some people are, taking what we've been doing to improve upon what we have just realized. Politically, some people are going through politics, using politics in our educational sector, making sure that whatever we want to do to improve upon learning, we are not seeing it from certain media houses. But I thank God for your media house, Joy News, that you are doing very well in what we are doing, whatever Ghana Education Service. The research on the 51%, as you have just stated, if I'm right to go to that angle, is a research that has been carried out countrywide. And we have also realized that most of our children cannot read their local languages. So I can assure you...
and some, most who can read the English language.
The English language, as my father said, it should be a course, eh? Is that not it? You said the English language shouldn't be...
Well, it's not an argument about what you said. Just make your submission.
Yes, what I'm just trying to say is that it is a fact that they cannot. Some cannot. But some
neither
are
English
doing very
nor
well.
vernacular.
Exactly. The vernacular, what are some of the things that are causing our children not to be able? Do we speak the language in the house with our children? Do you speak? Roland, I can ask you that you speak mostly English with your children in the house than ever. Even if I speak ever to you right now, I know you are from Volta region, you may not be able to understand certain things that I may be coming across. So that one alone too cannot help you to speak the language with your children in the house, which we continue to blame Ghana Education Service. Charity begins at home. The level at which we wanted education to go in this country, we are not seeing it because we are not having or getting the people who should help us implement whatever we want to carry across. That's all I want to say for now.
But let's come to the fundamentals. Now, what are we not doing right? We are supposed to be having pre-basic? We have basic, and those are the fundamentals. What are we not doing right in trying to impact whatever content we have in syllables or the teaching curricula through the languages?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it has a history.
So we've traced the history.
Yes, we have traced the history, but now we need to educate ourselves on some of the misconceptions about the interpretation of the language policy. We're talking about medium of instruction, medium through which you'll be able to, give the knowledge to the children. Let me use an example like a businessman or a market woman or a market person who is always in the market, or who goes around the country selling his or her wares in the market. At any part of the country that you want to do this business, you need a certain medium that you, so that you can actually sell your wares. If you want to, let's say, trade in the north, if you can speak Hausa, that is the medium you will do very well. Because if you go to the market and you cannot speak Dagbani or Hausa, you are in trouble. So we are talking about medium. And when we say the medium, people always say, of course, people have used terms, the technical people have used terms like mother tongue, first language, and so. And I think that is creating a confusion.
From what I learned in school, L1.
Exactly. L1, that is your first language.
Yes, L1, L2.
And
at least as far as linguistics is concerned.
Yes. But there's overwhelming evidence that where children are taught using the first language or the language that is within the area that everybody speaks or that the child is familiar with, then they do well. Overwhelming evidence, we don't need to go through that. UNICEF, UNESCO, they've done so.
It's been proven,
It's been proved. Now, so people are always bringing up this argument that, look, whose language are we going to use, for instance, in the school? No, we're not talking about. Let me just use South Africa has overcome it. South Africa has more language than we have in Ghana. But they have overcome this by not using the term L1, mother tongue. They say play language. And that is very, very important. For instance, I'm a Akan, if you like. If I happen to be in the north, working in the north, and I bring forth children, my children will speak Dagbani, while I will continue
giving the instructions and the teaching,
because
etc. in the house.
That term play language, as used in South Africa, means that because your child will be playing with the children in Tamale, the child will automatically be able to speak, because otherwise he will not be able to play. So,
but what about what you use as a medium of instruction in the
so
school?
that is what South Africa did this project, and it's worked for them.
So you're saying in South Africa, geographically, that's what, just like they have in India,
Yeah.
where Hindi is a national language.
Exactly.
They'll teach you English,
Yes.
but you go to jurisdiction, they have Telugu,
Exactly.
they have Tamil.
Exactly.
Okay.
But so, all this is just point to the fact that where children are taught in the first 3 years of their schooling in the language that is that is predominant, again, this word is also very crucial, predominant in this community that he or she lives, then they will be able to bridge, that is another South African project, bridge to English. When they have got a firm foundation in the predominant language of the area through using that as the medium of instruction, then after the third year, while they are being taught as a medium of instruction, or using that as a medium of instruction, English is taught as a subject, like geography, like social studies, like mathematics. But the medium, when it comes to English language, for instance, when it comes to mathematics, definitely you cannot use any other terms apart from the mathematical terms. In the same way, when it comes to the teaching of English, you are forced to use the English language, you see. So when this happens, then the children are able to benefit You see, the prison will be put to benefit from this, and this is what this is one of the evidence that we know. In fact, some of us had the opportunity to go to South Africa to witness this, and we tried to introduce it in Ghana, but again, so many arguments. Of course, the people will point to Accra. You are in Accra. So what are we talking about? What is the predominant language? People will ask. But you can zone Accra into several areas. There are predominant languages in certain areas that you cannot do without.
Because I was just about to come to the issue of the cosmopolitan area.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because where it's cosmopolitan, cosmo means that
yes,
it's just a mix.
A mix.
Exactly.
So if you are growing up in Choco or Bukom, you don't expect to. No.
But they are. For example, it depends on which side of the city you are.
Exactly.
If
Exactly.
you're from Tema to Accra, you get a lot of people from the Volta region,
Exactly.
Dangbe area, being located in those areas. But you still have, let's say, a lot of Akans and Northerners, let's say people from the northern part of the country domiciled in those areas.
Yes.
You go to this is the western part of Accra, you get to have a lot of perhaps Fanti, Agonas, and all of them coming through. But of course, you still have the other tribal people.
Exactly.
Also there.
So the issue is, what is the predominant language that is found in these zone areas, so that you use that.
Yeah. Let me add to what
Please add.
Daddy has just said. When you come to Jamestown, you realize that the people are Ga speakers.
Yes.
They speak Ga.
Does it mean the pupils also would need to be taught in Ga foremostly as a medium of instruction?
That is the dominant language that is spoken over there. So what Ghana Education Service is doing is that we make sure that we have a Ga teacher, somebody who can read and write and teach well. So when you go to those areas, we have people that we have trained for that language. Now, so if you are an Ewe man and you have your children, or you're an Akan man, you have your children also living around there, they should be able to go through that language. When you come to Labadi, that is La area. It's a Ga spoken area. That is the language that dominates over there. Now, when you move from Accra, that we have a lot of languages that are being used here. You go to Volta region, what language do you think the people will speak over there? They may not be able to speak Ga over there or Akan over there. They will be able to speak Ewe, because Ewe is the language that they use. So we have Ewe specialist teachers that handle our subjects for us over there. Now, it doesn't also mean that Ewe is the only language that is spoken in the Volta region. Volta region has also a lot of languages. So we have Akans also living over there. So we have posted teachers who can handle Akan language also in the Volta region. We just want to improve what former Director General has just said. We want to improve learning.
And you're saying all this is going on, but we're recording this 51% figures.
Oh, it's going on. It takes a gradual process.
Okay.
It's a gradual process.
Do you think as a country we have a plan to all this? Do we have a plan to say, well, we're doing this, we're implementing this over 5 years, and we hope to see an end result after doing extensive monitoring, and so at the end of the period we evaluate?
Yeah, I think this is what I said in the beginning, that our problem is with implementing the policy.
But the policy is
to
there.
the letter. The policy is there. It's been there for many, many years.
Okay.
But it looks like we take one step, and when people start asking questions, we try to withdraw, and this is creating a problem.
With
for
all
the
the
system.
experiences you have, let me ask you this. What if there are problems we have with the teachers who are the instructors?
Exactly. I'm
asking this because we have a porous educational system in which now I went to senior secondary school.
Yeah.
But at the time I entered senior secondary school, I noticed that for all the courses I was doing in arts, if I looked at the textbooks and the curricula of my seniors who were in sixth form, lower 6 and upper 6, and some had just completed Form 5 before I entered school, I could see that there was a lot more knowledge in their books. So I was reading their books. So it got me ahead of my class many of the times. I was very much lucky because I was inquisitive, so I was reading textbooks of sixth formers, etc. But now it's not that. You're giving something small because you are supposed to cramp everything in a school year. So the knowledge transfer is also not there. That has, since 1993, given us teachers who perhaps don't have the depth of knowledge. How is that? That's from me.
You see, again, there was this policy that, look, to be able to promote this medium, using the vernacular as a medium instruction,
L1 thing you came
from the early years, we adopted a policy of sponsorship. That is for teachers. Now, before you go to training college, you sign or you enter into a contract with any of the districts that you have decided
that a bond.
Yeah, you have decided that when I complete the training, I want to teach in Brong-Ahafo.
Yes.
You want to teach in Brong-Ahafo, fantastic. You go there, the district signs an agreement with you. That means, and one of the conditions is that you should be able to speak the language in that area that you have decided, to work after your training. So it is not about being an expert in that. There are people who can speak many languages, but they cannot write anything.
I can speak many languages, but
so using
I try to write a lot, but I don't think I'm an expert.
Using that, you'll be able to help the children to understand whatever. Using that language, that medium, you'll be able to help the children to be able to understand what you are teaching. And that is all that is needed.
Reverend Betty, is it easier, based on what he's saying, for this, if we want to fully implement this policy of making sure that the medium of instruction is in the local, which is the L1,
yes,
to be implemented in maybe specific geographical areas where we have concentration of a lot more of the speakers of the language than in perhaps more urbanized or peri-urban areas?
It is.
So it's easier to teach a lot more in the Volta region.
It is easier.
Or Dagbani in the north, or
yes.
Tamale area.
That is what we are practicing.
And also maybe Tree or the Ashanti Tree.
That is what is exactly going on. We have an organization who is in charge of learning these days. We met last 2 weeks ago, and we're trying to bring our local textbooks into the system, and we will make sure that we teach the people who speaks that same language within their locality, like the languages that we just mentioned. Also, what Ghana Education Service is doing, as my father has just stated, that people sign bonds. They have signed bonds, they fill all the forms that when I complete the training college, I would like to be in Volta region, I would like to be in Ashanti region, because this is where my sponsorship is coming from. But the challenge that we are having or facing as Ghana Education Service is that some people who were trained in a particular language, after 2, 3, 4 years in staying at wherever they are teaching, they would like to move from there to a different region. Roland, they would like to move from Volta region coming to Accra to come and teach.
And
maybe as a result of marriage.
And so
what we're trying to do is that we will make sure that you stay there for some number of years. We will not allow you to move to a different location. You stayed for a number of years before maybe you may be considered on certain grounds.
So all in a bit to make sure that the medium
of language is spoken over there and the expression goes on in that region.
Yeah, can I just add something? Now, when you are posted to a region or a district where you don't speak the language, the rule is that you should be put in the upper classes, upper primary, where English is used as a medium of instruction. So, of course, people will move, whether you like it or not, people will move. So when people move to other areas, like he's complaining, people after 3, 4 years, they want to move. Yes, if they want to move,
but there should be a replacement, you say.
Exactly. There should be a replacement. So, but when you come to Accra and you are Ghana speaking, it means you can be put in the lower primary to continue to teach, use the medium to teach the children. Of course, if you are not Ghana speaking, then it means you have to be put in upper primary or JHS. So that is.
When I was in I'm taking this because practically, when I was in JHS, there was a gentleman who came from a certain region. I think the first term, the second term of the first year, he didn't do well. By the time we got to the third, because the medium of instruction is local school, was the local language.
Yeah.
By the time we got to the third term, we were overwhelmed by his performance because he got acclimatized to speaking rapidly in English and so picking up quickly. Now, the import of my question that I'm about to ask is it easier to do the assimilation from you being instructed or taught in local language easy? Is it easier to quickly get into the mood of English speaking? Because if you're, I'm thinking if, let's say I stayed in Cape Coast and the medium of instruction was fancy, and at the end of the day, I always wrote my everything lower primary or whatever it is in or basic in fancy. Then I'm supposed to be speaking English all of a sudden and doing everything in English, answering my questions in English. What would it mean to me?
Exactly. So that is why I was giving the example of the project in South Africa. The project was called Mortino. I don't know whether it's still continuing, where they insisted on the local language or the vernacular. I don't know whether they call it vernacular. Then they have this bridge to English from P4. The teachers start teaching them in English. But the advantage is that because they have used the first language or the local language for over 3 years, they are used to so many, they have built in language development, they have built a lot of vocabulary using the local language. So when it comes to referring to many items in English, it is easy for them because they have the local counterpart. So telling them that this is now called ball in English, it's not difficult at all for them to picture in their minds that, yes, this is it. And that's why it was very rapid for you to pick the English.
Is it also saying?
It's true, but I want to divert a little from what Daddy has just said. I want to bring in what we call motivation. The person had intrinsic motivation. You know, when you have motivation...
motivation on whose part? The people's part?
Yeah, people's part, the learner's part. If you have the motivation, you have an anxiety and the drive to learn, you'll be able to get...
you mean switching from one instructional language to the other?
Exactly.
Very easy.
It is easy. I don't think it will be much difficult. The teacher must also be motivated. If the teacher also has that same motivation, you'll be able to do all that we are saying.
Is that the scenario? Is it that easy?
But it's easy, provided there are materials.
Yes.
Because you need, at that stage, you need a lot of material that children can refer to, and that will actually excite them. And I was talking about motivation on the part of, yes, if the children are continuously looking at things and seeing the English English counterparts and so on, they are so motivated. And of course, there's one thing that they need to do. Okay. They call it look and say and listening and speaking. Once they are given the opportunity to use it, even at that basic level, then the motivation will grow.
The literacy level, I'm using countries that have second language.
Yes.
The literacy level in Angola is 71%. Angola.
Yes, because...
They have a local language, they speak Spanish, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then you go to Bahrain.
Bahrain.
They have local languages, I think mainly Arabic.
Arabic, yeah.
So 95. Bangladesh, they have their local.
Yeah.
So the instruction is 61%. Then you come to Benin.
Yeah.
38%.
The local language.
No, literacy level. Now,
meaning they cannot write.
The number of people who are literate, they speak broken French, all the border things we have been. You go to semi-border and all that. Now, if you come to us, we've exceeded the 70% mark.
Ghana.
Okay. We may have been doing well in that spec, but how rapidly can we improve a situation in which there are key factors that will serve as inhibition for students to progress, in my estimation? For example, we have structures of private schools that give serious, consolidated, comprehensive education that is comparable everywhere in the world, for which we have a chunk of the elite, or perhaps a chunk of our society, sending their children there, in which opportunities for a lot more of the children when they progress up the educational ladder is limited. Yeah. Placement in schools is an issue. And so aren't we going to have a situation where you have been tutored in a local language, but you're competing with somebody who's, let's say, for example, is going to Jack and Jill, who is going, for example, to Christ the King, rich church school. You go to Cape Coast, you have Flowers Gay, you have various schools in Kumasi, etc. Even before you come to the lower ones who are below them, the B ones, who are also are almost good and closer to them. Just give me the scenario. How does it work?
No, it is because the difference between public schools and private schools is that the private schools, there's no, inhibitions about what parents should do. The private school says, this is my book list. Parents will have to buy. It is not the same in the public schools.
You're making up excuses.
Exactly. No, not excuses, but public schools, the books are supplied by the government of the day. And if the books are not there, children don't have opportunity to read. It is about continuously practicing the language through reading and speaking. And if you have no opportunity to read a single book in the whole year, and somebody in the private school is reading more books. Look, at a point we tried to even put in a scheme where we say, look, you have a class of 30 in the public schools. Parents, let's say, cannot afford to buy many books. Like if each parent of the 30 children buys one story book, so you have 30 reading books, and library time, these books are going around. When you finish, you move on to the next one. This is recorded in the classroom. They will read 30 books in a year. But in a situation,
and you wanted to pilot this?
Yes. But
did you get off the ground with this?
We couldn't get off the ground because, like you said, sometimes the government of the day will tell you that, look,
budget.
This is
no
what
budget.
I have.
But you are going to collect, assuming parents say, okay, head teacher, why don't you take our 5 CDs and go and buy the books so that our children will have opportunity to read.
Well, the two
but
of
they will
you,
tell you are collecting illegal fees.
Well, the two of you, despite everything, you don't get me motivated. I'm so downcast.
I am telling you, look.
Because you seem to have the knowledge, but...
Who says a parent would not like to buy one small reading material for his or her child?
In a public school.
But they are prevented because the head teacher will be charged with collecting illegal fees. Look, we must be realistic. You see, sometimes when I hear, this collected illegal fees and we're going to sanction, what is it?
It's not that he's collected.
So
he's only trying to aid or improve education, you say.
We are not giving, initiative to managers of these schools to do what is right. So in the end, they fold their arms, and that is why we are in this situation.
Well, Roland, it's a fact. What Papa has said is a fact. I believe government has made much provisions for the lower income earners and then the middle income earners also to make sure that their awards goes to public schools for their education, except few people who are very socioeconomically better than others, who could send their awards to private schools that you have just mentioned. Somebody in my village could not be able to send his or her award to those private schools. And do we also have those private schools in the villages that we have? We don't have.
No, if you're talking about village, you don't mean a typical village, but you mean a community not comparable to, let's say, a peri-urban community.
Exactly. Yes. I just want to mention my hometown, Vekwelenu. When you go to Vekwelenu, how many private schools do you have in Vekwelenu? And what is the standard over there also? As Director has just mentioned, if you add 10 cedis to the school fees, you'll be in trouble with us. Why do you do that? Because government wanted education to be affordable to somebody who cannot pay 100 Ghana cedis as a levy or something. We wanted it to be at the base for everybody to go through. That is the reason why certain books that maybe the private schools could come out with, that buy this book for your literature, buy this book for this. Somebody that these children will be able to purchase that book at the price of 50 Ghana cedis or 40 Ghana cedis. Once my children, I may not be able to buy that book. But if you bring that same book to compete with the public school children or parents may be shouting.
Okay, so now you're telling me it's a matter of is it the supervision or the policy implementation? Because, for example, a government or if the bureaucracy in the system wouldn't allow you,
exactly.
I want to call it to be on the safer side of the politics of things. If the bureaucracy wouldn't allow you, then it means that what? People don't take initiatives, even though they know what to do.
Yes, they know what to do.
How then do we achieve, let's say, an 80% readership or perhaps instructional level?
Let me, even before I answer, let me emphasize that, look, I am not in any way saying that people should be allowed to be collecting.
No, that's not what the import of our discussion.
Exactly.
It's a discussion we're having.
It is important that a teacher uses his or her initiative to improve the situation in the school. And one of these schemes that we tried to, put in place was this. Can you ask parents whether they can contribute? After all, we have always been saying that government alone cannot bear the full responsibility, so that parents should help. And this is actually captured in the FQ document. People don't know. In the FQ document, there was a chapter that talked about cost sharing of education in Ghana. Cost sharing.
So ideally, what should have been the situation?
The situation was that
parents should have paid some.
Where they find it necessary, they should come together. For instance, if they want to, you see.
But we're talking about uniformity.
Exactly.
It means that some schools in the public sector will be better off than others.
I will come to that.
Because of what you say is in FQ,
if
cost sharing?
Yes. Parents can come together and decide that they want to do this.
Let's say you go to a community like Eswisha or Ituam.
Exactly.
Or you go
I have no problem with that.
You go
because we are not tapping the resources of
you go to Alakple or some place like that, or you go to a community, for example.
Okay,
and you're saying,
let me use, when you go back to your village and they say, oh, this program is going on, they are trying to get the children to read, and so they are asking every parent to buy, how much is it? These small readers, 2 CDs, 5 CDs, and
3
so
CDs.
It might touch you, and you can say, okay, give me the list.
So you're saying there should be that flexibility?
Exactly.
Okay, let me just run this by you. Let me just run this, because currently there's a parent who wants to sue the St. Paul Senior High School in Denu that his son has been denied tuition because he did not attend vacation classes organized by the school. And I know that when I was in secondary school, I had to go to vacation classes because I know if I didn't attend vacation classes, I couldn't complement my teaching and learning that I got. We've got a soundbite, we'll run it by you, and then we'll continue this very discussion, wrap this one up, and then we'll look at how we can play by the rules, but at the same time achieve some near perfection.
What happened was that during the Xmas holidays, my boy came to me and said that the school was organizing classes. And I said, because there are many, some are in Bishop Herman, I don't have money to pay for his tuition, extra classes, and as well feed him on campus. So he should stay home with me. And so when school resumes in this January, he went back to school. He just sent me a text message that for 2 weeks now that he was in a school, they prevented him from attending classes. And that any attempt to go for classes, they prevent him, all the teachers.
And why are they preventing him?
For not attending an extra classes that was organized. So he will only be allowed to attend classes when he's ready to pay for the extra classes that was organized the vacation.
And how much was he supposed to pay?
I didn't bother to ask because the boys are 3. Some are in Bishop Herman and other schools. So I said that I don't have money to pay for his feeding on campus, as well as pay for his tuition, as well as pay their full fees in this January. I didn't bother to ask.
So what do you want done now?
What I want the school to do is to write an official apology to me, and secondly to be ready to tutor my son to be able to catch up with the 2 weeks that's lost. Otherwise, I will take the school to court as well as GES to court.
Why do you want to take them to court?
The 2 weeks that was lost, and I want to ask them whether the extra classes that is organized during vacation was organized by GES. If not, then it is illegal, and anything illegal should be brought to the attention of the court to decide.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So such a scenario. But I know that you want to, perhaps maybe you say it's...
No, this is bad.
Okay, it may be bad. But the
is.
point is that, you see, the head teachers are also compelled with a certain, confronted with a certain situation. They have to make sure that the pupils that are under their care get good grades.
If they don't pass, you'll be blamed.
Yes, because it's as if the school is enough.
The school, all the schools are facing this problem because the time available to complete the syllabus is woefully inadequate.
Who said that? You have a whole year.
What do you mean by whole year? You're supposed to complete the syllabus in 3 years. You don't have 3 years to complete the syllabus.
You have
That is
packet of months.
a major issue. We are in January. You have final years who are supposed to complete even the second term. The final year exam starts next month, practicals, and then the rating exam.
We could also add,
and that is the problem.
We could also add that we have equally important activities that goes on in the school. Sports is there, culture is,
and they all take time,
independence and
out of the mainstream education.
So you cannot say we have exactly 3 years. Now, looking or listening to the gentleman, I want to...
You know about the situation?
Yeah, I want to say that it's very unfortunate. It's an unfortunate situation, and we're asking that the gentleman should be calm. It should calm down. Taking GS to court will not solve the issue. I tried calling of the school yesterday, but I wasn't able to get him. I got the regional PRO, and I wasn't able to get the regional director also. We want to sit down and see how best this case will be solved. And then secondly, if a student did not attend a class, you can collect money from the person. That is where I'm coming from. I didn't attend the class. How do I...
Well, we do understand that, but we're here because the teachers and the heads of those schools have been compelled to operate under a certain regime.
Yes.
The time is short.
Exactly.
The syllabus is cramped.
Yes.
It's loaded.
Okay, it's loaded. They don't have some of the best personnel to do the instructions.
Yeah.
And so they have to make sure that...
But we are also coming from an angle which says that there must be an agreement between the school and the parents. School.
Is that what you talked about, F-cube complementary, or what did you say?
Yes.
What was the phrase you used? Cost sharing.
Cost sharing.
Okay. Is that the same thing?
Yeah. So if
So in the public school,
where parents cannot afford, assemblies are supposed to support.
Are you talking about the present day these assemblies? They haven't had their subventions for... Let me remind you, maybe you don't know. They haven't had
that
their
is what's in
subventions.
the F-cube document.
So
that is what people are supposed to do. And where people are, where schools have issues or have problems, then they can make it open, appeal to other agencies and individuals to support them. But the problem, the biggest problem facing the completion of the syllabus is, I mean, last year when they finished the exam, they said people did not do well in integrated science.
Integrated science, yeah.
It is because
they didn't finish.
If you see the integrated science syllabus, you collapse.
It's loaded.
It's too much.
It's loaded.
When it was 4 years, there were 48 units. When now that it's been reduced to 3 years, there are 58 and 58 units, and on the average you have about 6 subtopics.
And you'll be examining on all 58.
To be done, to be complete
And it's
within
science.
less than 2.5 years.
It's not an easy
Yes,
subject.
less than 2.5 years.
Okay, so now let's have a wrap on this very discussion. How do we make sure that we improve, because this one, the reading levels of English and local language, English and local language among pupils in public schools?
Well, I think in summary, I will go back to what I said earlier, that look.
We should go back.
No. What I said earlier, that they need to use the language in all form, reading, speaking, and so on. And that is why, as I said, we were trying to put in this scheme, this project, where we appeal to parents. It's there in the FQ document that parents can come together and decide, and it doesn't mean only collecting
Here lies the
money.
case.
But where
Hence
they
approach
don't
to
have the
suspension.
materials, where they don't have the materials to enable them to continue to read, then we'll have problems. Yes.
Education
Yeah,
service.
I want to
Implementing something that will improve the situation.
exactly. I want
According to the
add-
research we're having, it's not.
Well, we are.
You're not working hard enough, right?
We are still in the process of making sure that we do our best. But what I want to add to what Director General has just stated is that the availability of the textbooks, the storybooks, also is another point. We have them. Some head teachers or some head teachers too sometimes could also lock up the textbooks in their offices, with the mind that students may not be handling these textbooks. So if the students may not handle these textbooks well or take good care of the textbooks, sometimes they lock them and give few also to a group of people also to be reading. So if we can also make sure that we bring out the textbook that the government has, provided the schools for the children to read, we will improve upon all this that we
Are there scenarios like that heads will keep the textbooks in cupboards?
It's happening. No,
In many of the, I know what that's what the report said.
that's what the report said.
But many of the
report
instances,
stated.
Charlie, the textbooks have no deal.
They are not there. Who is talking about materials for? Because the GS reports every year, NESA reports every year. I've been following it. Now they have books in only English, math, science, and social studies, the core. The rest, in their own report every year, published every year. So what are who is going to log?
Yeah, should we draw our attention to the few textbooks
We are talking about textbook.
Should be used.
Do we have enough supplies?
We making
sincere.
provision.
Be
We're making
sincere.
provision.
Don't do PRO work. I mean, sincerely.
What I'm just trying to say is that we're making provision, to feed our schools with textbooks this term.
That's
As
PRO
I'm talking
talk.
to you.
That's PRO talk.
Making provision is different from having them.
Yes, having made provision.
Having
That's
made
the
provision.
making provision, having made provision. Sir. Okay, thank you very much for passing through. I know that we can't end this discussion on this.
no. Yes.
That's how it is. But I also know that I went to a public school for my junior high school, and I did very, very well. But it was also because of the instrumentality of my headmaster. I'm sure by now, if what he did was he did now, he will be suspended. Because yes,
Exactly.
yeah, because
Exactly.
I was JHS.
Yes.
Because I couldn't have competed with somebody in the private school, and I
Exactly.
did excellently.
Yeah.
And I don't know how.
So-
and the school now doesn't do well. That very school I went to,
Because
Nashaiman, doesn't do well.
initiative has been curtailed.
Yes.
You have no.
And even the school campus has been crowned with smokers and things like that. But anyway, we've had in the studio a former Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Michael Nsoa. It's a privilege to have you as well. We should serve as a consultant to the Education Ministry. I think that will also help improve the situation. At least when we improve the literacy level from 51% among those who pupils in the public schools to about 70% is not bad. That's the reading and writing levels. And we also have had Reverend Jonathan Betty, who is the PR for the Ghana Education Service, speaking a lot more PR language today. But on the side, we'll speak, personally, and we'll see how the situation. And thanks also for passing through.
Thank you.
Now, we're talking a lot more secrets in relationships. Sometimes we keep some of the things we do away from our spouses, but is that the way to go? And so we'll be having in the studio how you tend to also improve relationships by opening up yourself. I have to ask myself, do you have to open up yourself as always to your spouse? Well, it's something we'll be discussing. And Mama Viusu Abaji will be here with the councillors, and then we'll do a lot more discussion. But sandwich between that and is entertainment. And Becky will be here with a lot more. It's brought to you as always by Airtel. Do stay on. We're taking a break. Entertainment is next.